All right, thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim Nakrin. Thanks. We really appreciate being with us because we really want to share with you a little bit more about what is a very exciting day for people who live in the newly formed city of Mableton, because voters are set to choose their first ever mayor, also their city councilors as well. Our reporter, Atlanta News First reporter Rebecca Schramm, has the latest on how elections are going in Mableton.
Today's vote will determine once and for all who will lead this brand new city. The polls opened at 7 o'clock this morning. All is quiet right now at this precinct on South Gordon Road. Of course, if early voting is any indication, the turnout likely will be. Today's vote will determine once and for all who will lead this brand new city. The polls opened at 7 o'clock this morning. All is quiet right now at this precinct on South Gordon Road. Of course, if early voting is any indication, the turnout likely will be low today, which is common in special elections. Here are the two candidates that made it into today's runoff. For mayor of Mableton, Aaron Carmen faces Michael Owens. There are also runoffs today in Mableton City Council Districts 2, 3, 4, and 5. On the south side, voters in Clayton County are headed to the polls today to decide who will be their next sheriff in the post-Victor Hill era. Levon Allen, Hill's hand-picked successor, who's currently the interim sheriff, is running against Clarence Cox, who's the chief investigator for the Fulton County Solicitor General's office. One of those two men will fill the remainder of Hill's term. Here's what you need to know. Registered voters who live in the city limits of the newly formed city of Mableton and those who live in all of Clayton County, the polls opened for you at 7 o'clock this morning and they will close at 7 o'clock tonight. You must go to your assigned precinct. And to double check where that is, we've got a link on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. We will, of course, monitor the results this evening, and we will let you know who the winners are in this special election runoff. In Mableton, Rebecca Schramm, Atlanta News First.
All right. Our thanks to Rebecca Schramm for the latest on how voting is going in Mableton. I'd like to bring in a very special guest from the Cobb County Board of Elections, the chairwoman, Tori Silas. Thank you so much, Ms. Silas, for being with us. So Rebecca has been reporting that, she has not seen a lot of activities out at the poll, a lot of activity out at the polls. We know that there was some concern about low voter turnout. What's your reaction?
Well, my reaction, first and foremost, and your reporter made mention of it, we had a pretty significant turnout during the early voting period. In this runoff election, the early voting period was last week, the 10th through the 14th, and we had just over 2,700 voters that showed up, as compared to 2,500 voters during the advance in-person voting period, which spanned 3 weeks in the special election back in March. So that very well could account for some of what may appear to be a lower turnout on election day, but we still have 5.5 more hours. So we very well anticipate seeing folks coming in perhaps on lunch breaks as well as at the conclusion of the workday.
Yeah, and that certainly is the hope. What do people know? Maybe if they're what do people need to know, I should say, if people are watching this right now and maybe they still haven't voted and they live in Mableton, what should they know?
Well, there are 15 precincts that are open. And again, as Rebecca made mention of, they opened up at 7 a.m. We'll close at 7 p.m. Just in full transparency, we did have one location, Mableton 02, which is the Mableton Elementary School. That was there was a slight delay in it opening. So it once we receive the order from the judge, it will remain, or it should remain open until 7:10. But all of our poll workers are there and ready and willing and able to assist Mableton registered voters. We've got maybe about 47,000 registered voters, but they are there ready and willing to assist them to cast their vote for the who will lead, if you will, who will be the public leaders for this newly formed city of Mableton.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about. So we've got several candidates, right? In the mayor's race, we've got Michael Owens and Aaron Carmen. They were the top two vote getters in last month's special election, and then District 2, you've got Monica Yvette Delancey, Dami Oladapo. District 3, Keisha Jeffcoat, Yashika Marshall. District 4, you've got Patricia Alk, Cassandra Brown. District 5, you got Cheryl David and TJ Ferguson. I hope I said all the names correctly. But if people are trying to, feel free to correct me, but if people are trying to learn a little bit more and make an informed decision, what should they do?
I will say, with respect to our office, we don't provide any information with regard to any of the positions that the individual candidates have taken as far as kind of what they're running on, the issues that they're running on. So I would most likely suggest that any of your viewers Google, and if there are websites that these candidates have out there, that's the most, in my experience, that's the most efficient way to find information about the positions and the, kind of the stances, if you will, that the candidates have taken.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also just want to ask you about just kind of how unique this is. It's certainly, I mean, this is historic. This election, I mean, they're voting for the city's first ever mayor. Does that change things in terms of how the election goes and in terms of how the voting process goes?
No, I wouldn't say that it changes anything with regard to the voting process. And it is very historic in as much that the city of Mableton is now the largest city in the in Cobb County. But for the most part, yeah, it's the leadership, the first mayor, as well as members of the city council that will be selected, or at least the balance of the members of city council that will be selected today to assist in forming how the city of Mableton will run.
Yeah. How important is it that the voters do participate today?
It's extremely important. In as much that I'm not going to shy away from some of the issues that have been raised by citizens in Mableton. But for the most part, your vote is your voice. And so to the extent that you are a registered voter in what is now the city of Mableton, I encourage everyone to get out there and vote and have their voices heard.
How does this all tie into the decision to actually split from Cobb County in November of last year? I mean, do you think that that basically puts more responsibility on residents to get out there and vote?
I would say yes, but with regard, there's always, in my opinion, an obligation for the residents of municipalities to get out there and vote. In whether it be in municipal elections, state elections, or for that matter, federal elections. With respect to quote a split, I wouldn't suggest that there's a split per se, in as much that Cobb County will continue to provide certain services to the residents of the city of Mableton. But yes, I mean, in my opinion, it is imperative that in any election that that residents get out there and vote. And it's often referred to as all politics or local politics. These are the things, these are the individuals that will be deciding things that happen right outside your front door, right down the street from you. So yeah, I believe it's extremely important for Mableton residents, those that are registered voters, to get out and vote today.
Any final thoughts? Anything that I haven't asked you that is important to share?
No, we're open until 7 p.m. Again, those 15, or for that matter, 14 locations, with one of the polling precincts that's located at Mableton Elementary School. It should remain open until 7:10.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us, Ms. Tori Silas, the chairwoman of the Cobb County Board of Elections. We certainly appreciate you guiding the voters on how they can get out there and participate. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
And of course, we're going to keep following the latest on the special election in the city of Mableton. Obviously, Clayton County as well. Voters there are headed to the polls to decide who's going to be their next sheriff. post Victor Hill, and it's Levon Allen, who is Hill's handpicked successor, who is one of the candidates, the interim sheriff who's running against Clarence Cox, who is the chief investigator for the Fulton County Solicitor General's office. Same thing there, that polls open at 7 a.m. this morning. They already did. They're going to close at 7 p.m. So you do have time to get out in there and vote. But also important that you go to your assigned precinct as well to cast your ballot. If you want to find your assigned polling location, we do have some information on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. But after this runoff election, we're going to know which of those two men who you just saw on your screen is going to fill the remainder of Hill's term. Again, we've got Levon Allen, Hill's handpicked successor, currently the interim sheriff, running against Clarence Cox, who is the chief investigator for the Fulton County Solicitor General's office. This is really make or break today. It's your day to get out and decide who is really going to, lead the future when it comes to the Clayton County Sheriff's Office. We're going to keep following these races, of course, and bringing you coverage here on Atlanta News First and atlantanewsfirst.com. As always, we so appreciate you joining us, and we always encourage you to check our website for all the latest updates. If you've not yet downloaded our app, Atlanta News First app is so helpful, and it will send you updates. If you want to sign up for alerts, if anything big happens, you can do that as well. And then our traditional television broadcast starting at 3 p.m. Of course, we try to give you the top stories all across the state of Georgia. Thanks so much for being with us.